Greetings and welcome, everyone. It's All I Can Geek Gamecast, episode 528. I'm one of your hosts, Jim Gass, joined by Mike Sneedy.
What's up?
Corey Feinsod.
Yo!
And Tony Korkanakis.
Hey.
Welcome, listeners and viewers, to the our best of 2020. It's happening. This is the episode. Video game-wise, man, we've been doing this for like a decade. So it's been we've had a lot of best ofs, and this has been an interesting year. I think a lot of good games that came out this year, a lot of games that I cannot believe I played. So it's surprising for me. And getting into this list, I just want to jump right in, guys. We're ready to go.
Yeah,
we got disappointing, for those wondering, disappointing, surprising, and then our top three. Okay. Now again, we don't play every game, so this is not like the best games. These are our favorites, and our disappointing and surprising. So my disappointing game of 2020, and this is probably going to piss some people off because I think it made some Game of the Year's list. Not this podcast.
Oh, okay.
Doom Eternal.
Oh wow,
disappointing, eh? It's no Doom.
No, I didn't think it was great at all. I played it. I stopped playing it about probably midway through, and it's like on the list for of the years.
You like the first one a lot, right? I mean, in this new Doom, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Tony raved about the first one a lot. I played it because I really enjoyed that game. I felt like this game was just kind of like boring. I don't know. I just wasn't as into it. It just looked fine, I guess. I felt like the controls weren't as great. The platforming, nothing wrong with the platforming. I would say they did an okay job with that. They integrated it in there, but I just don't see what the draw was for this game. I felt like it wasn't as good.
Yeah. I had no desire to play just because, I really did. Like, I remember raving about Doom back in 2016. Yeah. Like, that was awesome. That came out of nowhere. I think I only got it because trading bonus. I was like, oh well, I'll just play through it before I trade it. And I was like, damn, this is really, really good. Because it made you this unstoppable demonic thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Eternal. I was like, I'm good with that. Like,
no, it was like
it
the
seemed
same
more
idea,
like a puzzle. Like, you had to approach every sequence. Like, this is what I need, and this is how I'm going to get through it. And,
that's what it was. It was more about, once again, you have like this. You have groups of people, which each gun would be better at, killing some certain demons. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, this is a shooter action game. I don't want to have to sit down and think about, wait, what gun am I doing for this one here? Or these guys are more weak to this one. Or you have to sit up top playing your attack and be like, okay, I have to do these guys first because they're gonna fuck me up if I don't. But then I mean, Tony, you said you're like an ultimate badass in the first game. It just felt like that's the point of this game, is to be that ultimate guy, the Doom guy. But this wasn't that great. It didn't hit for me. Corey, what was your disappointing?
My disappointing was Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Oh yeah.
You played it?
Not for very long.
I heard that was really bad, and I was looking
forward
to
that. It's really bad. It just wasn't what I wanted from that game, and
there's nothing in it, right?
It's just it just was. It lacked a lot. So
bad game. All right, Mike.
Well, there's two things. There's one I didn't play at all, and one that forget it. I'll just go with the game I played. And the most disappointing game of 2020, even though it also might be the favorite game I've played that's come out of 2020, is Cyberpunk 2077. And that is because
you somehow always do this to yourself. Like,
well, I know.
You always do this to yourself.
But it's because, this is a unique case this time. Like, this is a weird thing.
Well, at least you played it. Like, I would not want to. It should be on my list. I should say that. But I'm not. You played it, so you deserve.
Yes, I played the game. Yeah. However, I did not get my hands on it until the 28th, and at this point, it was already on its 6th hotfix. Therefore, sort of pretty much disqualifying itself for 2020. And that's why it's disappointing. It was a complete hot mess. It still kind of is on my PlayStation Pro. Like I've said, I've put 60-something hours into it right now, and I've had 18 or 19 crashes. About averaging a crash every 3 hours. So yeah, that's disappointing, especially since we had literally 8 years of hype for this game, and yes, this was started development. I guess it was more pre-production in reality, and they started over since then, but we didn't know that. So while this old gen was the next gen. Literally, that was new. So they couldn't get the production of this game within one generation without it being a mess on that generation. And so, yeah, it's completely disappointing. That said, I also enjoyed the most of anything else I've played this year, but it's beside the point because it's still disappointing. I'm playing it, and it's this weird feeling that, like, if I had any patience.
How much longer can I get before it kills my game?
No, I mean, not
get a
even
warning with your PlayStation goes like.
I've started to sort of pay attention to that, and I have limited crashes that way because there's always times you can go to the menu and like just fiddle with stuff, and then it calms down a little bit. And there's always a reason to do that because there is a lot of like RPG management and stuff in this game. Like you're crafting, you're breaking stuff down constantly. But
sounds like Yakuza, but Yakuza's not broken.
No, it's not too similar to Yakuza.
No, Yakuza like a dragon.
Oh,
like you're crafting, you're doing side missions, you're having fun with that game, but it doesn't crash on you.
But but the game it could have been like really, really good, but hopefully it will be in like a year or so. But
yeah,
that's my disappointment. It might be my game of the year for next year, but it's disappointing for now, even though I like it.
Tony, you're disappointing.
Kind of like what you were saying, Jim, about Doom Eternal. Mine, I believe, I meant to check this before we recorded, but I forgot to. One of my favorite games of I believe 2019, or was it 2018? One of my favorite games by Capcom came out with Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Yes.
And that was, I'm pretty sure that made my top 3 that year, because I was just praising the hell out of that. I was like,
absolutely, it was such a surprise.
Capcom back on top.
Yeah.
And to me, in my
Capcom
heart,
went away. Capcom went away.
Yeah, fuck Capcom went away. They released some other games, Mega Man 11 and stuff like that. So I opened my heart up to Capcom again. I opened my heart. And inside that heart of mine, I have a soft spot for Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4. Those are like my favorite Resident Evil games. Other ones are good and stuff, but those 3 are like my holy trinity of Resident Evil games. So when they're like, boom, Resident Evil 3 Remake, I'm like, hell yeah, Resident Evil 2 Remake was so good, guys. Can't wait for this. And it just like, it felt like the love and care and attention that they gave to Resident Evil 2 Remake, they just didn't bother with it with 3. Like, they just didn't bother with it. And I will have to say, I didn't even play this game because literally my brother, who's the biggest Resident Evil fan in the world that I know of, he's like, dude, don't play it. It's just, don't bother. Just, you can watch me play it. I'll stream it or something like that. But, like, seriously, just, like, don't. It's so short. They cut content out of the story. Like, they literally were like, no, you don't need to do this part anymore. They didn't include, like, the Mercenaries mode, which was one of my favorite parts of Resident Evil 3, where it's, like, kind of like a pseudo speedrunning type of thing where you're scored and stuff like that. And then they inserted this, like, multiplayer thing, which, again, who is asking for Resident Evil multiplayer? Like, honestly, who? Who? Not me. Not anybody I know. So to me, it was just like, and by the time, like, I found out about it, I already had it in the mail because I pre-ordered it, and I just looked at it, and I was like, nah, I can't do this to myself. I'll just shelve it. And I was like, maybe around Halloween I'll get in the mood. And then Halloween I just totally forgot about it. So to me, Resident Evil 3 just. And the thing is, I did eventually watch footage of it and stuff like that. I'm just like, yeah, maybe this could have used some more time in the oven and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can definitely see how disappointing it is, especially after 2 was such a amazing production of
amazing.
Bringing it back. So
amazing.
Yeah, no, I get that. All right, let's go to surprise. Surprising for me, might be on somebody else's list later. 13 Sentinels. Never would have played that game. Never even thought about playing that game until Tony recommended it like crazy. It's so good. It's really a good game. Like, I didn't make my top 3, but it needed to be mentioned for me because it was that good. Like, I blew through that game. Like, I played a ton of it. And I don't know. I was surprised at. I guess it was the narrative, the way that the story unfolded to the point where it's like
anything, but they really like impressed me with how there's a whole full like Grand Prix mode, create tracks yourself. You're unlocking new outfits for Mario and new karts to race in. The only disappointing thing about it is like it's not really multiplayer unless you have another Switch and another car. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun and it works so well with the augmented reality aspect of it, and it knows about the gates, so it like makes them a little flashier, and it makes you feel like you're going fast when you hit like a mushroom, or it makes you feel like you're getting spun out when you're hitting a banana. It's like it does a really good job of doing all that with an actual car, and it's like you want to look at the car that you're driving, but then you're looking at the screen. You look at the car, you look at the screen. It's like it's really cool. Yeah. So I was very pleasantly surprised by that.
Cool. All right, Mike.
Well, my surprise will also show up kind of later in my list, but my surprise would be the Game Pass release of Yakuza 0 for me.
Nice.
And it started something for this year pretty much. And it was a surprise for me because I didn't know what to expect. I've heard about it. I'm like, this might be interesting. And it's the type of thing I would only play because it's on Game Pass. So I did, and next thing I know, I'm kind of hooked into this ridiculous world of Yakuza games because of this. So, and it sort of colored my entire year. So yeah, that was a big surprise that, it's just unapologetically Japanese and silly, and it's all over the place, and kind of even old school in a way. Like, it's not like, cutting edge. I think Yakuza 0 might have actually been like a upscaled version of like a old gen game as well. It's not like new by any stretch, but it caught my attention and it got me, and that was the surprise for me this year.
Cool. All right, Tony.
Oh God, I go with so many for surprises actually, because this year was a year of gaming for me due to COVID and stuff like that. If I had to narrow it down to one for surprise, it would definitely be Final Fantasy VII Remake, though, just because again, just like Capcom, in my eyes, Square Enix has been in the shitter, especially when it comes to Final Fantasy. Just because 13 was a disaster. I mean, that's the only title they released that entire generation. 14 was an MMO,
multiple
which
13s.
Multiple 13s. 14, which is an MMO, it's its own category, and 15, as much as I appreciated it and I played it, there were definitely a lot of shortcomings. So I was just like, nah, Square lost its magic. Final Fantasy is never going to be a big thing again. But they proved me wrong with 7 Remake, and I'll admit that because and for the longest time I was doubting it because the huge delay. Like, first of all, they announced it years and years. I think in the first year of PlayStation 4, or even like the E3 was announced the PlayStation 4.
I think they like announced at the same announcement that Shenmue was coming or something. Or was it like before that?
It was around the same time because they were like, "Whoa, what is this? What year?"
We're getting
is this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But and then when it eventually got delayed and they're like they're pulling it in house, I was like, "Oh, that's not a good sign." This and the other thing, but 7 Remake came and it was really good, great. Oh, yeah. Even I would say great. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if it wasn't for me knowing it's a remake, I would consider it worthy of Game of the Year. But just knowing that this is just a third really of the overarching story, I just can't do it because I'm like, this is great, but we're still like in the first 10% of that game, and there's so much more to go, and there's so much more to see and do. So just like, if you were able to have done all of it, which I know is unreasonable without crunch, and even probably unrealistically possible even with crunch. Cyberpunk, looking at you. I'm still excited for the future of that franchise, and it definitely gave me the good nostalgia where it's like, hey, how'd you feel back in 1997 or 8 or whatever year it was released? We're gonna make you feel that same way again, so that's awesome.
Yeah, that's good. It'll be. I made my list.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, I figured.
Yep. I'm very predictable this year, I think. Played a lot of nostalgia on me. So
we're getting the good stuff, huh, Jim?
Let's get into the list. My best of, our best of. Let's go with it. This is our top 3 for those wondering. Number 3 for me. A game that probably nobody thought would make a list for me, but it did. It's Hades. It's Hades. It was number 3. Bill's probably screaming at my list right now. It should be number 1, but Yeah, I keep finding myself going back to playing more of like just jumping in and playing around, and like I didn't finish it. I beat the game. I know how you finish it. I don't have the time to put into that because now I'm playing Yakuza like a lot, but um, it's still such a great game. Like I don't know what it was like because it's definitely not my style. And I did, you know what it is? They had that easier mode to, you know, I failed.
Make
but
it accessible.
Here's a little something more because you failed. Here you get a little bit stronger. You get a little bit stronger every time you fail, and you do that anyways in this game. That's the point of the game. So it just helped me get through it better. Whereas
It
earlier,
didn't feel as punishing, right?
yeah, exactly. So it was accessible for me, and I really enjoyed it. This is my point of making a game accessible that I want to play. You know, like I feel like I would love something similar to this in like a Bloodborne style game. Like I understand the brutalness of it, but there should be that little aspect for people like me that want to enjoy the game, but not be like the brutal, hardcore people that are out there playing that game. So I don't know. I really enjoyed this game. Number 3 for me, only because the other two are higher up. You know, we talked about
only because there's 2 better games, I guess.
Honestly, like when I first put the list out, Hades was there, and I rearranged it. Like
well,
a
if
few
I'm gonna
times.
go next, I'll just say Hades is my number 3 also.
Oh, Hades is my number 3 as well. So we'll just all good.
Really? Okay. Well done. So, yeah, guys, go on. Go ahead.
Yeah, Hades,
Hi.
number like the first thing that you go in there and it's like this is one of the best looking games I've ever seen, regardless of the fact that it's 2D. Well, it's like hand drawn animation style looking, even though it's and it's just amazing to look at. Character designs are so cool, and that loop, like you're saying, Jim, you have to fail to move forward. It's like kind of one of those things where it's like it's gonna fail. You're just gonna try your best, and it's like that's what roguelites are. But this game doesn't feel like you are like being punished because you've made a mistake. It makes you feel like, all right, that was good, I can do better next time, instead of like, god damn it. But there are times that you do that, but it's like they're not as severe in this game. And again, with the way that the story progresses because of that, it just enhances the whole experience. I'm sure Tony's got some similar things to say, so I'll let you talk, Tony.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is one of those games where like I feel like Supergiant finally, through all their games and all their releases, for me,
this is their best game.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt in my mind. But it was one of those things where I always appreciated their games, like from the art or the music, the voice acting, the direction. Like I could always be like, I love X and Y and Z about this game, but it just, there's always a little something that I was like, it's not just like clicking with me, or I'm just not connecting in a way that's more like, yeah, this is fun, but like not it's okay, or like to cite Mike, it's like I don't hate it, but it's not like I'm like loving it or something like that. But Hades was finally the culmination of all the things, and I think they even mentioned in an interview where like each game contributed a different lesson for them to learn, where they finally meshed all their narrative, their graphics, their voice acting, the music, the art style, the gameplay system, and it all just came together. It coalesced perfectly. And for me, I love that, in just that I could commit myself to this game. And, Jim, like you said, like, don't get me wrong, I love hard games, but I appreciate what this game did in the fact that you are supposed to fail. And the story progresses because you do fail. And actually, I'm really interested to see somebody actually beat it in one go, if it changes, like, responses and dialogue, because it's like,
is it possible, though?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know if it would be.
So I want to look it up. I want to look into that. But it just, the character of Zagreus and his interactions, where it's like, you know what? I got killed, got in that blood pool, but you just got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, try another run and stuff like that. So, and like what Corey was saying, most roguelikes, because I even enjoy roguelikes a lot, but it's one of those things where like you would get a run where like you're like, I'm gonna beat it. This is finally, I'm gonna do it, and then you just make one mistake, or like the boss cheeses you or something like that, and you're like, fuck this, fuck that, like, and you don't get anything for it. You don't get anything for it. So it just makes you not want to play that again. Whereas Hades, even if you die, you still have progression of sorts. Either you're making yourself stronger through like the God mode buff, or you collected materials that you can enhance your character with. So just perfect way to do a roguelike. And like I said, just super awesome to see an indie title just really kick it up to a level where it was easily on that same stage as AAA 100-man studio games.
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right, Mike, number 3.
Now, my number 3 is actually kind of similar. It's going to be Risk of Rain 2, which came out in August of this year for consoles. My friend turned me on to it. He actually sent me the link. I think it was a gift. I didn't even realize. But and so me and him, and like he's in Reno, so we play online. When we've been playing on Xbox, like pretty much up until recently, where we finally cooled off. But again, it's another kind of roguelike. You go around, you get power-ups for monsters you kill with certain, like there's like 6 to 10 different characters, and they all have different abilities and stuff, and you get different power-ups, and you can just stack and stack and stack, and the number is the game. And depending on, there's different ways to play. You can sort of choose what power-ups you get in certain modes, or you just have to get what's there. There's chests, there's money, there's different ways to do it, but basically, and as you go on, the game scales harder and harder and harder. And you can loop infinitely, or there's a few different spots where you can end the game by doing certain things. And it's just, we played it all together online, and it's just an interesting thing where you can become a god if you like break the game the right way. And after struggling with it for so much, it's so satisfying. But also we sort of went to the brink where the game like barely works, but it's just an interesting game, and not something I normally would play, but my friend got me into it, and it's something we played pretty consistently for like 3-4 months. So it's a big part of this year for me. And there was a time where I was just like, let's find out, let's do this again, let's get that new like difficulty level, let's keep going, let's see how far we can go. So it was a good thing, a big part of this year for me.
Yeah, Hades was like that. I mean, just going back to that real quick, was that run that I beat the game in. I was like, I'm not going to finish this game in this run, so I'm just going to go through. I'm going to farm what I need, restart, get stronger, and like when I got past the Hydra, I was like, that was really easy, and I'm like, I think I had a shot here, and so that's when I started to like get into playing it, and then. Oh yeah, it was a hell of a run. I was only playing to farm, and then when I got through the Hydra without even like getting close to dying, I was like, wow, I'm rolling through this right now. So yeah, I was like, okay, now it's time to get serious. Like that's when I started getting the actual bonuses. But yeah, so all right. Number 2 best of 2020 for me was Ori and the Will of the Wisp. Fantastic game. Another game that
forgot that came out this year.
Yeah, not my style though, without a doubt. Like. This is the kind of game where even in this game, I loved it so much. It was visually so impressive. The stories, I really want to know what was going on with the story. I was in areas in this game where they were asking me to do something. I'm like, I don't have the coordination anymore at my age to pull a move off like that. And so I was like, I'm ready to give up. And then, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep working at it. And there's no easy mode in this game. This is what you get. And I pulled it off. Like, I was like, holy shit, I got through it. I finished the game, and it's one of those games where like obviously it's not super brutal, but it's like, okay, you got to jump off of here, you got to spin through this, you got to use throughout the entire part of throughout the game they introduce more and more skills, and then you have to keep using every single ability you got to get through the next area, and it just keeps expanding like a Metroidvania. That's what it is. And I'm just not that good at those games, but I just kept playing this, and gorgeous game, like absolutely gorgeous game. And the fact like the Switch version of it looks incredible on the Switch too.
Yeah, on the Switch, yeah.
But it was such a good game. I'm very happy that I sat down and played this one back in, I think it was just before I played Final Fantasy VII, and it was really good. And I'm happy I didn't give up, because the story is very touching, and I'm not, I don't know if we want to talk spoilers too much on here, but it's not my kind of story, Corey, ending. But it worked so well that I just really enjoyed it. That would be that vague. So
I got you.
Wait, did you play this, Corey?
So,
no.
He knows.
I know what he
about.
says. His ending.
I know exactly.
What do you?
Yeah. It's a spike. I hated the spike ending. We'll just go with that. but of Cowboy Bebop. But I like this ending. So that was my number 2. Corey, number 2?
My number 2 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. That game, a lot of things that you had touched on, Tony, saying like Echo, the thing that impressed me the most is that, but basically like what you said, the opposite of what you said with Resident Evil 3 and how they did it with Resident Evil 2 is like they took a game that we all know, and then they made it new for everyone that knew it, but also gave people who didn't know it that story and gave them those characters and put you in positions that you haven't been before, but at the same time put you in spots that you have been before. And they did it in a way that we all imagined it as when we were playing as kids. Like when you see those CGI cutscenes and you see the child, whatever. What was that? Yeah, it's like, but now we're seeing it the way we thought. Like that's how we imagined it, and that's how we remember it. And it's like this is everything we ever wanted from this game, and it is their most, not necessarily. I mean, it is their most popular game, I would say, even regardless of like what your favorite Final Fantasy is, which the best one. This is still the number 1 game. When people say Final Fantasy, they think Final Fantasy VII. I would say like Cloud and his and Sephiroth and their swords, they're just iconic.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the response to when Sephiroth was revealed as Smash Cut, like it broke the internet again.
So these characters are just super iconic, and to have them come back, the nostalgia, it was really well done, and I cannot complain at all about like them trying to bring it back. It's not like, because a lot of times it's like a cash grab. It's like, oh, we'll just do it.
No,
but here, and again, I think like to the point that it is just a third of the game that is a factor of it, but it does feel like a complete game.
Yeah. It's not like it's
you've never played 7 on PlayStation before. You play this and like, I felt like this is a complete story. And now we're gonna get a sequel, guys. Cliffhanger. It's like, no, it's like this is a complete story. I felt like I had a full game worth of content and everything. I didn't feel gypped at all.
Yeah,
just sure. Mike, your number 2.
My number 2, it's gonna be again Yakuza 0, and really all the 2 Kiwami games. I'll bundle them all in there together because that's all I played them all. And like I said before, I was surprised obviously with this game, but. Yeah, there's just so much content, even though you do end up in the same city over and over again, pretty much. But there's a lot to do. I enjoy the fighting style, especially in 0. And Kiwami had the Tiger Drop, which is actually infamous and infamously overpowered counter move that you can do in this game. And then the side missions and stuff, and you can run a cabaret. You can be a real estate agent, and then later on you're doing other stuff, or you can join like an underground fighting ring, or you can go and just play Virtua Fighter 2 through 4 in the arcades there, which is great too, like fully the game, the arcade version, and or you can call up girls or race remote cars, or there's so many ridiculous things to do in these games, and there's just so much you can do, and it's just funny. It's a funny game. It just has such a sense of humor with all the side missions, and the main stories are pretty serious and like big twists and turns. They also fall apart if you really, really like try to pick them apart, but you don't want to do that. You just want to go for the characters and like the
everything's so over the top. Everything's over the top. You shouldn't be taking it too seriously as it is. It's just kind of
they definitely take their main story seriously, but it's still kind of silly if you really think about anything for too long. Yeah. But it's just good, and I'm just so glad that I got into this, and now I have like this whole series that I can be a fan of and just get more of this stuff.
I'm so proud of you. Yeah. I'm really so proud of you that you like stepped out of your comfort. No. I don't even mean that like in a bad way. I'm just so like when you whatever earlier this year, like I started playing Yakuza. I was like flabbergasted. I was like, wait, what? You're playing Yakuza? Because I know like just like your preferences and stuff. Like I was like, I don't know if you're gonna like this, man, but good for you. And like you just kept on going. And I was like, good for Mike. Just like step out of that comfort zone, finding like a new passion and new love.
No, I mean, and it's kind of like that's part of it too. Like it's just like it's very Japanese in a way where it's like like I don't really understand like this stuff, but it's fun that way.
It's
Like
fun.
I don't understand all these like suffixes and prefixes they use because I don't listen to like Japanese translations regularly. But like I'm trying to understand it now. I'm like I still don't even understand how names work really. They're like reverse, but not quite. It's not quite that simple. Whatever. It's just fun. So yeah, I got into that, and that was a big part of the first half of my year, and even until now. I played the spin-off on another system, even though that didn't come out this year.
Yeah.
But it's good stuff.
Cool. All right, Tony, number 2.
Number 2 for me is a game that, in an average year, probably wouldn't rank. But because this was COVID year, this game allowed me to connect with a lot of friends all over the world, and that's going to be Animal Crossing: New Horizons. It's a slice of life, and honestly, it's just like I was talking about Haze and Supergiant. It coalesced. Like I would just want to say that Animal Crossing, I think, because this was supposed to come out last year. I remember people were so disappointed and so upset, but not rioting or anything like that. When Nintendo was like, guys, we got to push this out till next year. We're really sorry, but we don't want to burn out our developers. We don't want to rely on crunch because the game's just not going to be a good product that way. So I know a lot of people are super disappointed in that. But it turns out maybe it was like for the better because it came out right at the beginning of quarantine and it really gave people an opportunity to just like, here's a time sink, get away from like the stresses, the anxieties, and the pressures of real world. You want to hang out with your friends, you can do it. Like, hey, come over to my island or I'll come over to your island and you can, hang out and just do goofy stuff. There's no goal in the game. There's no point in the game. The whole thing is you are making your own fun, whether it's decorating, whether it's collecting, just hanging out, wearing clothes, making different outfits, just finding your own village, like your favorite villagers was its own adventure. And it was one of those rare cases where just it became like the cultural zeitgeist for the year. I mean, we saw like even towards the end of the year, like freaking Joe Biden had his own island for the campaign because it's like, hey, come to Biden Island and stuff like that. And just the customization. And I mean, even Gary Whitta created his talk show.
That's right.
Whatever that I
remember seeing on Twitter
where he had guest stars coming on his show, visiting his island, and they did that. So it was just really clever, and it just allowed people to connect in a way that we were missing this year and stuff like that. So easily something like I think last I looked it was like 200 hours or something like that, sewn throughout the year, and it was nice because it was like good, wholesome, like nothing bad ever happened on this island. It just when you log in, you're just in for good times, relaxing music, and just hang out with your friends, either it's your animal ones or your real life ones, stuff like that. So
nice.
Got to give it credit where it's due.
Yep. All right, and that's what I'm doing with my number 1 pick because you guys have listed it, you have been surprised by it, but you haven't given it number 1, and it deserves number 1, and I will tell you why it deserves number 1. Let me give you a tale of 2 games. 2 games in development hell for 5 years. 5 cold, dark years. One of those games climbs out of the ashes of hell. The other one is still being spiraled downward and trying to get patched. Final Fantasy VII Remake was a train wreck, I thought, waiting to happen. And they made a game that not only tapped into the nostalgia that we loved of Final Fantasy VII, but it was a functional game. It looked incredible, and it also improved upon. I think it gave us a new story. It gave us. Oh my God! It was so surprising how good that game was. That it's my number 1 game. And again, it's more amplified by the fact that we had another game come out this year that was in 5 years of development hell, and it's a shit show. And like. Seriously, like I did not expect Final Fantasy VII to be a good game after all the shit they went through. Yeah, so number 1 game, no question about it. Not only because it's like one of my favorite franchises, like favorite games of all time, Final Fantasy VII, but because like it brought us back to that world. And while it had nostalgia is my theme of the night apparently, but then it even like took that story and you're like, wait, this didn't go this way, and then you're like, oh, okay, we got curveballs coming here, and I just love it. And even like the ending, you're like, whoa.
What's gonna happen next?
Yeah, exactly. And it looked so good, and it ran. I mean, it is if you go back and look at Final Fantasy VII, you're like, I don't remember it looking as bad as it did, because in your head you pictured it this way.
Right.
This is how you saw that game, and they encapsulated that in this game, and it was just incredible.
Yeah.
So, my number one game, no question.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about the next one, and it's one of the things where I'm saving a replay, probably like the year leading up to Remake Part 2, and hopefully playing it on PS5 with enhancements or something like that. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks amazing, but there are some parts, I don't know, where like some textures you look at it and you're like, you look like
it's a little jank here and there.
Yeah, it's a little jank and stuff like that.
The city, the city areas, you're like, oh, they ran out of some funding there.
Yeah, so, exactly.
But yeah, so I'm looking forward to the sequel. All right, so Corey, you're number one.
Well, if Tabletop Simulator came out this year, it would absolutely be my number one.
Yeah.
I just want to throw it out there that I've spent more time in Tabletop Simulator this year. I do way more board gaming this year online than I ever thought would ever be possible. So I actually haven't played as many video games as you guys. I was definitely more on the board game side of things and using Tabletop Simulator. So I just want to shout out Tabletop Simulator. But my number one game of this year is The Last of Us 2. And
I'm not surprised. I mean, if you weren't ranting during Discord, like I'm like, he loved the game. Like there's no question. Like it has to fit for certain people the story, and it must have clicked.
It absolutely. I can like. It is a very polarizing game. I could see I don't see a middle ground with this game. Like there is either you like it like a lot or you hate it with absolute passion. Like there's no middle ground with this game because of the narrative that they took. And
the story, what they're telling you. Yeah.
No, and the thing is, the gameplay is a vast improvement over the first one. Like I didn't realize how much of an improvement it was. I was like, oh, this is just more the same. But like, there are way better. It is a way better feeling game than the first one. You have more things you can do. The interactions are way more dynamic. I know that a lot of complaints were like, humans, zombies, and you do have that. Narratively, it makes more sense, but you do have moments where they are both there, and you can use them to your advantage to get around things. And the stealth parts don't feel like punishing, and the fact that there's a lot of sequences you can just run through. You don't actually have to, play through them if you don't want to, and you can just like get a clicker to go and kill the soldiers that are bothering you or whatever. It's great in that sense. There's a lot of narrative aspects that are very disturbing for people, and this is a revenge story. This game is about hate essentially, and how that is consuming, and what that costs you, and the consequences of your actions when you let hate take over your emotions and in your life. And so the narrative part of it is just, it blew my mind essentially. Excuse me.
Yeah, cool.
Of course, of course, on my turn, my kid wakes up and comes over. But no, so like The Last of Us, I really, really like. I know I mentioned it before. Like this game has made me feel things like, and made me come to face things that I did not expect a video game to have you face or come and confront. And the fact that you do have to worry about like there is like a moment in the game that I think that the leaks caused a lot of issues, because you learn things that you're like, oh, this is ridiculous and whatever. I never got spoiled on anything, so me being not spoiled on any of that stuff, I definitely think helped a lot, because I didn't have preconceptions of what this game was going to be, and I just was able to go into it and see what the story they were going to tell. And it is not the story I wanted for these characters, for sure. I like the first game is still on another level. This game is not there. And the way that ends, I definitely think that my assumptions were not met, obviously. I don't think that this game could ever achieve that, because what I wanted for these characters and how they were going to, grow and become, whatever they do, was not what happens here. But I appreciate that this was what they wanted, and I like that I got a story that I could go through and enjoy. And again, it is just fully a revenge, hate, everything, hate, and it is one of the most gruesome. And yet, because of all that like violence and gruesome parts of the game, there are moments when you have like that levity or the taking the like a breath and calm moments where you're having a few flashbacks here and there. It's just those moments are enhanced because of all that for me, and they hit me a lot harder because of the things that you experience before that or after that. And so yeah, I think this game deserves every accolade it got, and also understand every
All the hate it got.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and I don't think if you were spoiled on things and you did not like what you heard, I don't think this is a game for you, and that's fine. I don't see why.
Yeah.
You I don't appreciate people pushing their agenda on you, and I don't think like you should be swayed because someone says this game is terrible. Like if this is something that you might enjoy, like give it a shot. Like I don't think that you should go either way. But yeah, if you've seen it already in the spoils, it might not be for you, and that's fine because it is its own thing. Like I said, it's a love hate.
Not every game is for everybody. So
yep.
No.
But yeah, I definitely never felt things like this. It is crazy.
All right, Mike, number one.
My game of the year, it's a little bit safe, I guess. It would be Ghost of Tsushima. Or Tsushima. There we go.
It's a great game.
Tsushima.
And it was just functionally, it's another open world action game, which is kind of up my alley. I like those games in general, but it had a style that we haven't seen before, and you don't really you never really get like a game like this where you're a swordsman, you're a samurai, like you stick with that sword, and that's what you have the whole time pretty much. Now there's other tools at your disposal, but basically you're a swordsman the whole time, and so that was interesting. I found the combat quite fun, if not a little easy. But really, it's just a striking world. This Japanese samurai time period that we have surprisingly little of in games. And the art style is just crazy in this game, and it was just it ticked all the boxes really. You had your stealth, you had your action, you had a few different ways to fight. There was the showdown thing, the standoff, and then there's also the duels, which I prefer the duels. I think the duels were the best part of the action in the game, even though it's kind of like a restricted version of the typical combat.
Yeah, I actually didn't like the duels. The first couple were cool, but then by the end I'm like, why am I even bothering with this dude? Like I could just kill him one shot.
That's what we were
from a narrative.
Yeah, from my point of view, is like I don't even want to take my time with duels because I'm like, if I fuck up the button press, I'm like, I just go kill these guys instead because they can really screw you.
Not that. That's the
the other duels.
Like
the
ring.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
The duels, the one-on-one. They're kind of like the boss battles. Like I enjoy them in this, but they are basically like a more constrained version of the typical combat. But I found them the most interesting, really. It was a good story. It had an interesting ending where you can sort of have a little agency there, and I haven't even touched the multiplayer stuff, but apparently it's good. So I'm considering that too, as a factor where it's just a complete package. It's a very solid game, and it's really the most complete big game I think that came out this year, other than Last of Us 2, which I wasn't interested in playing.
Yeah, cool. All right, Tony.
Yeah, for me, no surprise if you've been paying attention to podcasts, but for me, this is one of those games where the narrative, and it's already been mentioned on the podcast, so I'll just say it, but 13 Sentinels just had this amazing story where, again, I'll repeat myself, but it's hard for me to imagine how you would even go about doing this in any other medium.
My whole thing is how do you plot this out? Like the storyboard. Just how do you plan it?
It's just so crazy to think about in terms of complexity, but also just how you're connecting these things. And anybody who's listened to our podcast for a couple of years now, how much we talk about sticking the landing, and how if you don't naturally build up your stories and your characters to come to conclusions and whatnot, it just messes things up from Game of Thrones to in my opinion, Rise of Skywalker. I'm sure I'm missing a couple other things. It just ruins your experience in terms of man, how hard is, we even asked this question, how hard is it to write an ending, a satisfactory ending to these things and stuff like that. And somehow this game has a story where you're just, it's literally like an onion. We're like, okay, like here's the premise. Okay, cool. And you peel that layer off, and there's another one. You're like, huh, okay, so this is about time travel.
It's Ava meets Inception almost, like the rabbit hole. Like it is like in depth. Keep going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Right,
Inception.
We got to go deeper. We got to go
deeper.
And
exactly.
That's what it is. And like even from like I know the theme of tonight is a lot of nostalgia for us, but this game has that where like I feel like there were so many sci-fi references from Terminator to Pacific Rim to Evangelion to Godzilla. The Matrix, they had so many things. It's like, oh, this is really cool because it's like a love letter, but not like a, necessarily in your face kind of thing.
No,
but again, just the way that like, and it's not just like a linear like A to Z story either. It's like, hey, you have X amount of characters right now, pick one, and then it's like it opens up, and then it opens up again. You're like, holy crap! And depending on the way you do it, you learn things about the universe and the story that you may not learn that somebody else picked a different path. So it's really interesting because I remember, Jim, when you were playing with it, you're like, I just got to this thing. And I'm like, well, I wonder if Jim knows this, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to be
because you don't know. You don't know what I don't
know. Right? Yeah, exactly. And stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's perfect in the way that every time they end one of those chapters with the characters, like they drop like that little morsel where you're like, oh,
yeah.
Like, I want to continue this story, but at the same time, like
it's the Netflix binge. It's right there at the end of every story. Yeah, it makes it the hook. Yeah.
So it's just awesome, and I mean, the main writer is the Vanillaware artist. It's Georgia Kamatani, I think his name is. So like, what the heck? You're this professional grade level artist, but also you're an amazing story writer. Like, what the heck have you been doing for all these years? Like, I'm so excited to see what happens next, and I'm just happy that it seems to be a success story because it's one of those games like it's a visual novel. You're like, that's not really that popular, especially on a platform with PS4. You're like, people these days is like, is it AAA? Is it Big Bang? Is it Call of Duty? This and that. But
it's. I mean, like the only thing you could say negative about the game, not even for me, this is not a negative, but for some people, it's like when you finish the game, you have to finish the game. Like you have to finish it. There's no like, okay, this is what's left. It's you're done when you're done essentially. So, yep. So I mean that's the only drawback I've heard people say, but for me that's awesome. It's like it's complete. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to. Oh, did I miss an ending? I did miss one though. But thank you, Tony, for the heads up on it.
Yeah. So, it's one of the things you don't even know. Like, wait a second, that wasn't there before.
Yeah. So, cool. All right. I think that's going to wrap up 528, the best of 2020, guys. We are now into 2021. I think we've got, is it most anticipated left? Or did we do? No, we did that one. No, we did bold predictions. So we got most anticipated is coming up. So tune into that. I think that it should be next week.
Maybe.
We could just listen to last year's and we'll be good with.
my problem for next week is I'll be working on a lot of stuff in the new house. So
Congrats,
so thank you. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. You can write us allyoukgeek@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe and like button. We'll keep you guys updated. See you guys next week. That's it.